Hello and welcome to another episode of Smaulgld Subscribers Sound Off. Today I have with me a first-time guest, long-time listener, Michael Goyer. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm terrific. Lewis. How are you?
Just fine. Michael, it's good to have you. Now, in the pre-show, Michael, we were talking about, and I was interested in getting your take, and I haven't heard it yet, on how you got interested in, first of all, gold and silver, following economics, and also cryptocurrencies. A lot of people first got started, but not as many, after the first dot-com boom. And that's where people started to develop that interest in precious metals. We saw from 2001 to 2008, post-dot-com, the gold market especially really moving up from the low 200s all the way up to about 800. And it was really, though, I think, after the financial crisis that there was a tremendous amount of interest in gold and silver. And then Bitcoin was released. The white paper was released right around 2009, early 2009. That's when a lot of people got interested in that. What is your story in terms of starting to look at and develop your views on Federal Reserve, financial systems, gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, and economics? When did you start really paying attention, and when did you start to develop your worldview that you have now?
Well, it probably goes way back to the 90s when I was involved with a scholarship program in Canada. I'm a Canadian, and it was known as an RESP, or a Registered Educational Savings Plan. And the goal was to assist parents in saving for their children's post-secondary education. And at the time, as is still the case today, if not even more so, the rate of education inflation was well beyond other inflations. And it was a shock to many parents to see what the projections were. And so it was at that point that I really got interested in looking into money and inflation and the dollar and that sort of a thing. And so had an interest from that point of view and recognized that this was not going to work in the long run. And then along came 2007, and that's when I really focused on precious metals. And it took me probably maybe another 2 or 3 years after the white paper was released, maybe 2012, 13, to really get into Bitcoin and understanding it and taking a look at it. And I was like like everybody else, and coming from the precious metals point of view, I guess, and brought a lot of skepticism towards my my research into it. So that's basically how it all rolled out, so to speak, over a timeline.
Okay, so when you started the initial place, and I would think this is true for most people, 2008, 2009, you start to point the finger directly at the excesses, not just at central banks, but specifically at the Fed when they launched QE. Was that basically what did you in and started to think about the concepts of precious metals and sound money and limited issuances and things of that nature?
Well, I suppose it's kind of like everyone else. It sort of all depends on where they are in their life at the time when they take certain interests. And at that particular period of time, I was not working, and I was taking some time off to pursue some golf. So to see how good I could get before I got too old. And so precious metals and that sort of a thing at the time were something I would be getting into soon thereafter. But so if I had, let's say, an interest in protecting myself, I might have gotten into them sooner. But I had little to protect at that time in my life. So it really was more political than it was financial, I guess.
How so? Because a lot of people who were interested in precious metals around that time were looking at the store of value. We're going to get into a discussion about store of value, but you're saying at the time there wasn't much value for you to store in terms of holding on to something. So you're looking at this more from a political aspect, you're saying?
Right. Looking for solutions to, or bringing back credibility to what had become completely and totally off the rails corrupt. And so obviously the natural thing to go into would be the sound money principles behind precious metals.
All right, so now you start to dabble in and start to develop an appreciation for the attributes of precious metals, and you say a couple of years later, you hear about the white paper, you hear about Bitcoin, and this is before the big run up in 2013, correct? This is about when?
Well, probably 2011 is when I first heard about it, and you know, you need to hear it a couple of times before you get irritated enough to say, "What is this?" And so,
were you irritated when you heard it?
I wouldn't say maybe irritated, the wrong word. Intrigued, you know, tempted. What's this about? And so, as I did, I found out very early and very quickly that it was founded on, basically, it was based upon gold as its theory, but bringing up into the modern day and digitalizing it. So the breakthroughs in it were, when they sink in and you understand the technical breakthrough and what it solves and what it does for security and various other things, it is quite a breakthrough indeed.
So from my perspective now, and I was introduced to it around the same time. I remember there were people on the Daily Paul. I used to follow that before the 2012 election. They were always waving that in front of my face. And what you said was they based it on gold. And my initial reaction was, well, that's nice, but there already is gold. So why do I want this? I still haven't gotten over that hurdle. I've gotten over other hurdles. How did you get over that hurdle that why we would need this when there already is gold?
Well, first of all, I would say that gold was at the time and still is suppressed in order to support the value of the dollar. In other words, it was being used to uphold the corruption. Mm-hmm. And so this offered a private money that was outside of the system that, if it catches on, could have the ability to do what gold up to that point in time wasn't doing. And so, given that it was still had some sound fundamentals behind it, but that it was at that point for certain not manipulated or controlled by the central authorities.
So what do you say to those that is obviously a selling point for those people, and that's why you have a crossover people who are precious metals fanatics, or also Bitcoin fanatics, as they view it as something, as a way of getting back at the system. But what do you say to those who say that Bitcoin is a creation of the system? It's part of the system. It's a plot to get you into the cashless society where they track, trace, and tax everything.
I would say to you that, or I'd say to them, that's a very valid point and concern, and it's something that needs to be monitored and out in the open and examined, absolutely, because the potential of Bitcoin to remain outside of control and central control is its most endearing quality for me. And so if there's a potential for it to be thwarted, or if it is, as you say, a plot, one of two things can come of that. Either they created their own demise, in that this technology is out now and anyone can see the code, anyone can create their own cryptocurrency. And so there's the potential to slay them, if you will. I hate the word slay, but slay them with their own sword, if you will. And the other is that, you know, one has to take into context and recognize that the very things you fear of losing through such a system, you've already lost for the most part. I could understand that concern more broadly if we were free, if we were able to interact with each other without approval and permission and all of that stuff. But this is already the case. So it's a valid concern. It's a concern that I think we should continually be aware of. And there is a lot of genuine fear behind the idea that this only enhances central control.
Yeah, well, one of the things that I agree with that, and I looked at it from the perspective that we live in a digital age, whether we like it or not. And if you're in a digital age, you really can't resist it. You can say you're going to take yourself off the grid. You're only going to transact in gold and silver. But who actually does that? Because even the big gold and silver proponents are running online businesses where they track and trace their transactions that they make online using credit cards, and they ship to known addresses and so on. So in the digital world, I think it does provide some sort of a potential to be outside the system, or potential. To me, the thing that really drove it home to me was when India decided, I thought, well, there's enough out there. You don't need to have Bitcoin to buy coffee. You can use cash. There's no real need for it. But when I saw the Indian government recall their currency on 2 days' notice and said, guess what? Those rupees that you hold in your pocket will not be worth anything. And that drove home to me is they can recall their money. They can kick you out of the Visa system, as they can kick countries out of the SWIFT system. No one can kick you off the Bitcoin system. All you have to have is a wallet, and no one can deny you a wallet. And from there on, you can transact. So now you're involved in both Bitcoin and gold and silver. You're following them, and for a time, Bitcoin remains, and still is, but at the time in the 2011-12 period, it's highly experimental, and Bitcoin and gold and silver are really taking off. They're doing exactly what they should be doing in an environment where the Fed is lowering interest rates down to zero, printing billions for a QE a month. And at that time, were you satisfied that you were properly diversified with your gold, silver, and cryptocurrencies, or were you looking at cryptocurrencies really as the key, or were you still holding hope that it might be gold and silver?
Well, I see these as complementary and supportive, supporting of each other. So I never saw them as competing. In fact, it's my view, quite frankly, that it is cryptocurrency that will free gold and improve precious metals in their utility at the end of the day. So when you add the benefits of the cryptocurrency to the precious metals, now you've got something far superior. So while I was enjoying the precious metals price rise, I was also cognizant that at any time, those that are controlling it could tamp it down, and they did.
Now, you raised an intriguing point, and I touched on this a bit with Ann Renf in the last interview I had, and I believe you're working on a project of this nature. There are people out there right now that are saying Bitcoin is Bitcoin and it's fine the way it is. There's people who say gold is gold and it's fine the way it is. Then there's people who say gold would benefit being put on the blockchain. There's others saying that shouldn't happen. There's no need for that. I think you take the view that Bitcoin can help gold, but it doesn't necessarily have to be backed by gold. Can you elaborate on that thought?
Yeah, absolutely. I think let me start by saying we have seen in the big overall picture the dangers of centralization. And so we're moving to more decentralized ways of looking at things, and because they're more secure and they're more private. And so
can you explain, but for our listeners, a lot of people don't really understand the difference between I know it sounds basic, between centralized and decentralized, and give an example of a centralized system and a decentralized system and how they both operate.
Okay, let me see what a good example of that would be. Without using Bitcoin or gold.
You can use both of them and just explain why.
Okay, so here's an example. I can explain it best by referencing how I have been thinking on it of recent, which is the difference between, I'm doing a crypto metals peer-to-peer exchange.
Okay.
And so it's our view that I want to take, or that we want to take the best of crypto and apply it to the precious metal market. So, because we believe that what Bitcoin offers is the most secure network ever created in its decentralized distributed network. So,
and what does that mean? That's what I want people to understand.
Okay, there's no one central computer where Bitcoin exists. There's no one central database where it can be seized or it can be hacked or it can be interrupted. So as a result, it's far more secure.
Right. So there's no go ahead.
If you take, for example, a hoard of gold or a pile of gold,
right,
that's centralized and as vulnerable to confiscations and theft and rehypothecations because it requires a trusted third party, and there are certain risks associated with vaulting metals in a central location.
And that was the concept behind e-gold. The people bought their gold, they had it stored centrally. When the government wanted to shut it down, they knew the situs of where the gold was, they seized it. And that shut down e-gold. You can't do that to Bitcoin.
Correct. And so what we wanted to do was to add that feature to Bitcoin, to gold and silver. And so it's our view that the people around the globe that hold precious metals in their personal vaults or homes or wherever they want to keep it are a decentralized vaulting system already. They're just not hooked up in any way that they can relate or interact with each other. So it's all. So
an Indian who has a drawer full of silverware, and a guy in Santa Fe, New Mexico, who has 2 gold bars hidden in a paint can, they're decentralized to the extent that they're separate and they don't have all their metals in one place. Is that what you're getting at?
Correct. Or even a few places.
Okay, but you can think of thousands and millions of people around the world, millions of institutions who may have physical holdings, but not all at GLD in one vault held by JP Morgan.
Correct.
In fact, all those metals there are larger amounts of metals held that way than there are in the large stockpiles, I would imagine.
Very likely. Yeah. Very likely. But where we're looking to have it's particularly the case if you're looking for peer-to-peer transactions at that level. So it eliminates. So what happens is that it's a network that's already there that, because it's not hooked up, doesn't have the power of the network effect, doesn't have the power that a network normally would. Our intent is to bring them together in a network where they can exchange metals and cryptocurrency peer-to-peer as if we were a park bench, such that we don't buy or sell the metals or cryptocurrencies. We don't touch them. We have nothing to do with them. It's purely a park bench where we provide a smart contract that's between those 2 individuals, and they interact with each other.
Okay, so let's use my example of the Indian with the silverware in India, in Mumbai, and the gentleman in Santa Fe with 2 gold bars in a coffee can in his garage. They want to do an exchange. What does your company do, or how does it work?
Well, we're primarily dealing with coins and bars, not necessarily silverware.
Okay, but let's assume they both have the equivalent that need to be on the platform. The Indian guy has his proper size coins that are readily identifiable, and the guy in Santa Fe's got the proper size gold bars.
Okay. Well, basically what happens is they meet on our park bench, and they agree to, so a Bitcoin individual is going to trade with someone who's going to have precious metals. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be, so we've created a token, which is a smart contract.
Okay.
So what happens is that someone with Bitcoin who wants to physicalize some of his profits purchases or offers his Bitcoin in terms of our token.
Okay.
And so then what happens is someone who is looking for some Bitcoin who has our token trades that. Then the fellow now who has our token, who had the Bitcoin, now can go on and look at those who are offering precious metals in terms of our token. So think of it like a mall gift certificate idea where, for example, you can go in at Christmas time and you can go to an individual store and you can get a gift certificate from them, and that has a certain amount of utility. Or what you can do is you can go into the mall office and get a gift certificate that's good at any of the stores, and that has a much larger utility.
Right. So now your Bitcoin. So what happens to the guy who's selling in India? If he wants to sell, he's gonna take as payment your token.
Correct.
Okay.
And then he's going to then exchange it for free. He's going to exchange it for free for any cryptocurrency that we offer, which we're going to start off probably offering 5 or 6 or so. And he can exchange it for that with no fee.
And the value of your token, without disclosing the name of it, will it be valued on the basis of a basket of currencies? How is it going to be valued?
The token itself becomes the reference.
Yes.
For these other elements, right?
So you can then, your token will have a base value, and it'll buy you so many Bitcoin, a few more Litecoin, a few fewer Ethereum, whatever you're going to have. So it's basically going to have its own value versus the other cryptos. Is that it?
Right. And metal.
Yes, yes. But the metal prices, and you're not setting any prices or attempting to, you're going to use your token as a reference against other cryptos and other metals, right?
Correct. So this is a place where the price can be established in a peer-to-peer network around. It's global, so you'll end up with probably regional prices that predominate, rather than just a global price set by a central authority who has motivations to support their fiat currency.
So most likely the guy in Mumbai is not going to ship his silver bars to the guy in Santa Fe. He's most likely going to find someone else in his area. I see. Okay.
Exactly.
And he can also...
So you'll be able to toggle the geographical area in which you're looking to offer your metals or cryptos. And the utility that this adds at this point is that, let's say, for example, I own a large TV store in Florida, and let's say the manufacturer in Japan says he wants to, because he needs silver in his production, he would give a discount if someone wanted to transact in silver. Well, the fellow in Florida, Joe, he doesn't actually own any silver, but what he can do is that he can acquire our token with his cryptocurrency, ship that token over to the manufacturer in Japan, where he can source that silver locally, and he can get, so one fellow gets a discount, and the other guy gets the silver that he sources.
Makes sense. Also,
so this is the utility, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The other utility I'm seeing here, I'm hearing about this for the first time. It's also similar to local Bitcoins, except that it's not just a cryptocurrency that can be exchanged.
Correct.
And it's also similar to Craig's. You know, when people say we have to get X merchant or eBay to accept cryptocurrencies, well, instead of waiting for that, you've actually created something where people can go and use their cryptocurrencies to actually buy, at least for the moment, gold and silver. But I would think you could eventually, if the tokens have the same, a benchmark value, you could extend it to things beyond precious metals, couldn't you?
Absolutely. And the idea of a currency that would be transactional, that is not just a particular crypto or a particular metal, is that it represents a basket of these things.
Right.
Therefore, holding on to the token itself is holding on to the potential of all those, because it may be preferred by some to have gold and others to have Bitcoin and others to have those, or any combination of those for that matter. So there may be someone who wants to diversify a portfolio from metals to metals and cryptocurrency, and this is an ideal place for them to do that.
Right. So it seems to me this is why the two things that got me interested in cryptocurrencies is not just writing them off. One was, as I mentioned, the idea that you can't get kicked off, but the other was the continued innovation that I saw, and that people didn't just drop their projects when the price fell, and that the human capital involved seems to be increasing. And one of the things, for example, 10x, now that's a card that takes the cryptocurrencies and allows you to use them in a payment card. it sounds like your concept is to create a marketplace where you also have, like you say, the mall gift card attached to it, and you've created a large mall in which you can use that token to transact goods and services within that mall, and again, in a decentralized way. Now, what are you using, if you don't mind me asking, to create the smart contract?
Well, there are what we're using yet in the platforms that we are currently undecided with that, because the innovation in this space is happening so fast. Smart contract platforms are coming out, and so we're going to be delaying the permanent decision on that for a little bit, but not too long. But we're going to have to pick something soon. So we're in that pre-ICO era, where that place where some of those things get built out as we go along.
So I've seen, everyone knows that Ethereum was basically built for that concept, and I think EOS is piggybacking off of that. But I've also seen now that Litecoin, you can build smart contracts on Litecoin, you can build smart contracts even now on Bitcoin. I don't know much about that. Are those things you're looking at?
Yes, those and a few others. And basically, Ethereum's become so popular, and it's trying to scale up to continue to meet that demand. And so that's been a bit of a concern as we look at it, and waiting for Litecoin to come out with theirs fully built out and ready to go, and a few others. So we have a little bit of time to figure that out and give them a chance. But the default right now would be an ERC20 token, probably.
Interesting. All right, before I let you go now, where do you see, aside from the innovation that you're creating, do you see the space going? One of the things that I see, and I think you disagree with me, is that the cryptocurrencies, as they become, or they attempt to regulate them, whether it's foolhardy or not, if they attempt to regulate them, I think part of that is to get them into the payment system so that they can have oversight over them, and it's so the banks, the Visa, the MasterCards can try to subsume them into the payment system. And I think that's maybe not bullish for the concept of decentralized cryptocurrencies, but it's bullish for the price. Where do you see them heading, both in terms of retaining their so-called independence, deregulated and type currencies, and also in terms of price?
I think it's going to really be a truly free market of ideas, and you're going to have your fully regulated, perhaps national cryptocurrencies emerge, and banks coming out with theirs, or providing services in a way that you suggest, that completely, basically, just the same system as it is today, and all the way down to completely anonymous dark tokens that no one will be able to have a look at. So something probably in between will emerge, something that's going to give some degree of anonymity and privacy, because those things are becoming ever more valued out there, whether it's the exposures of what Facebook is doing with data, or whether it's these credit services having their data hacked. And people are wanting to take control of their identities and their data. And there's some crypto projects out there like Pillar Wallet that are attempting to find that balance. And so I think there's a tendency, or a wave moving towards the decentralized model, and people having more control over their data as opposed to less, because the damage that's being done otherwise is becoming obvious and paramount.
Well, I agree. I think it probably will be both. I think when people speak monolithically, it's either going to be one or the other. There's generally some combination or derivation of both. Now, what about the gold and silver prices and uses as currency and or store of value going forward?
Right. Well, as I said before, I believe that cryptocurrency comes to free them, and that's what I've created. What I've done in this way was to have a price discovery mechanism outside of the system, while at the same time adding the benefit of cost saving by disintermediating certain aspects of that process, whether it be dealers or whatever else it ends up being. So we're going to it's going to be a place where, again, regional prices are possible to have and to find, and so this creates an arbitrage. This gets gold moving and silver moving in ways that it currently isn't. It makes it more transactional. As a result, someone might want to utilize a token like ours and therefore get gold or silver later, rather than having being open to someone walking in with a bar and dropping it on the counter. So when you give gold substantially more utility, you give it more value.
That is correct. And also, I like the concept of the regional prices. I made this comment once before. The price of eggs is different from town to town, region to region, but somehow the price of gold is the same globally almost.
Right.
And that is actually acts as a way of central control over the price, because it doesn't take into account the local supply-demand dynamic.
Now you're starting to see it.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, I'd like to have you on again, Michael. So please tell us when you think or what your plans are to have your project in completion so we can talk about it again. When do you think that might be, and when can our listeners expect to hear back from you?
Timing is always difficult to say, but I would expect that over the next few weeks to few months, I'll be able to say a lot more and give a much clearer picture about what we're trying to do and why we're unique and why we're very excited about what we're doing.
Excellent. And do you have a website at the moment or a placeholder?
Yeah, we just have a placeholder. There's really not much information there at all. That's furex.io, furex.io.
All right, Michael. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to come on the Smaulgld Subscriber Sound Off program, and we look forward to talking to you in the future, Michael.
Thanks, Lewis.